All right, welcome back. Episode 5 of the EO Smith Sports Talk podcast. We've got another busy episode this week. We're going to talk some NBA draft, some golf, some college football, NFL, and obviously our soccer segment. But we're going to start here with a quick NBA draft segment. The draft is in 1 week, November 18th. Free agency starts 2 days later, the 20th. And then just before we know it, December 22nd, the NBA season will kick off. So looking forward to the draft. I'm joined by Leon and Alex here. The Timberwolves hold the top spot. Alex, in your opinion, who should they select number 1 overall?
The Timberwolves got a lot of team needs, but some of those team needs that they don't really need would be point guard, where they got D'Angelo Russell, and at center, where they've got Karl Anthony Towns. And so I think a good pick for them would be Anthony Edwards. I think he's a really good shooting guard out of Georgia. Probably one of the best prospects the University of Georgia basketball team has seen in forever. Obviously, that's more of a football school. But he's looked great. He's a really good scorer. He's really competitive. He's got great heart. He's got the measurables. He's got the size to play shooting guard too. And so in my opinion, I think the Timberwolves should go with Anthony Edwards.
All right, Leon, of the big three, LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, who should they go with?
I believe it's Anthony Edwards too. I think out of the big three, Anthony Edwards best fit the system that the Timberwolves have. The Timberwolves already have D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns, so I wouldn't want them seeing getting LaMelo Ball or James Wiseman. He's a powerful guard with elite length and explosiveness, and can score the ball at any point. So he's a great scorer, and that's what the Timberwolves need.
I disagree, actually. I think the Timberwolves should target LaMelo Ball. Obviously, we know him for the big name, obviously the Ball family, headlined by Lonzo, and obviously his dad's a big voice. But I think he's the best of the brothers. I think he's the best prospect in this draft. He's a generational talent. He's obviously, 6'6", 6'7", and he plays point guard. He can shoot. He's a great passer like his brother. And his defense is really improving. He's becoming, an elite defensive guard. He has professional basketball experience overseas. I just think he's the top prospect in the draft, and especially if you compare him with D'Angelo Russell for now, I don't think D'Angelo Russell is part of their long-term plan. Obviously, he's more of a short-term fix. I think once he leaves, it'll be LaMelo and Cat, holding it down in Minnesota. So we'll see how that goes. And then I want to quickly talk about the Warriors, who have the second pick. Obviously, we know they had one of the best dynasties in recent years, a couple of championships. They still have Steph, Clay, and Draymond. Who do you guys think they should target? We'll start with Leon.
They should target to trade this pick, I believe. I believe none of these players in this draft can benefit them. I feel like they should trade it for someone that's a stud, like Bradley Beal. Who else? CJ McCollum, or someone like a stud that can benefit them now, not in the future.
All right, Alex, what do you think?
I think they should look to select a player with this pick. I've heard especially from Leon, they should trade it. They should, try and get another star like Bradley Beal. But Steph's getting older. Steph is 32. Clay's not too far behind. Draymond's not too far behind Clay. They really need youth. Their core is getting older. They can't be looking to compete with Steph and Clay and Draymond up into the 35, 34 age range. And so I think they should go with somebody like Wiseman or whoever is available from Edwards or Ball. And they should take one of those two guys. I really think this team needs an infusion of youth, and I think they can't turn down the opportunity to select a guy like Wiseman or a guy like Ball or a guy like Edwards when they already have Steph, Clay, and Draymond on the roster, because they really need that youth, and they need to start retooling this roster to continue to compete.
I actually think both of those are good ideas. My only question is, because they have such big contract, obviously Steph and Clay are on max deals, Draymond and Andrew Wiggins are on huge deals. If they go target a guy like CJ McCollum, you're going to have to clear off some of those salaries, either Andrew Wiggins or Draymond. Obviously, you're not going to trade Clay or Curry. And so if you're getting rid of those veteran players who can really play a role in your championship run to target a CJ McCollum, I actually think Alex's idea might be better to target James Wiseman, who I think is the best center in the draft, obviously. He's really kind of developing a jump shot. We'll see how his game kind of fits in the Warriors system, but if they can get a good center who they haven't really had throughout this run, pair him with you have a starting lineup of Curry, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, and Wiseman. I think that's got to be one of the best starting lineups, if not the best in the league. So I'll be curious to see what they do. And then what prospects should we watch out for outside of the obvious top three, Alex?
Well, I'm an Oregon fan, which means I do a lot of Pac-12 watching. And one guy who really impressed me was Onyeka Okongwu from USC. He looked really good playing for USC. Obviously, when you're looking at LA teams, you're mostly looking at UCLA. But he looked like probably the best prospect coming out of the Pac-12, in my opinion. I didn't really see anyone better. He's got a lot of talent. He's got good size. I think it might be Onyeka Okongwu as like a sleeper good player in this draft.
All right, Leon, give me a name to watch out for.
Throughout the years, you see a lot of gems in the middle of the first round, like Kawhi Leonard going 15th. I believe a Kawhi Leonard type player named Isaac Okoro. He's an elite defensive player. He's still working on his jump shot, but I think once he works on his jump shot, he will be the next Kawhi, and he's going to be a force in the league from Auburn.
Wow. All right. And then really quickly, we haven't really talked much NBA since all of the coaching carousel has occurred. What coaching hire do you think stands out, Alex?
It has to be Ty Lue to the Clippers. There isn't another coaching hire that stands out as much as that one. Obviously, we know about the Clippers' disappointment in the bubble, losing to the Denver Nuggets. So I think this one is the one that stands out the most because it looks like they've got their coach in Ty Lue, but we'll have to see if he can really mesh these personalities together and get this team clicking like Doc Rivers wasn't able to do. And so it'll be interesting to see the take he has on this team. I know Rivers was really in favor of like resting Kawhi during the regular season, and obviously we saw how well the Clippers played when Kawhi was rested against the Denver Nuggets. So it'll be interesting in my eyes to see how he handles the kind of load management and the personalities and just this team in general. And so I think that's got to be the biggest standout.
Agreed. I think that's got to be the most pressure on any new coach in the league, probably on any coach in the league, because really, obviously, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George entering their final season on the contracts. If they have another disappointing year this year, you have to imagine those guys don't want to play together heading into the following season. And I think Ty Lue loses his job.
Both their contracts are up too, I think.
Yep. So yeah, I think it's probably finals or bust for Ty Lue. It's conference finals or he loses his job. Leon, what's a hire that you're going to want to watch out for heading into the season?
I want to see how Steve Nash does with the Nets. Kyrie did say like they don't have a coach, but I believe like bringing in an ex NBA player, ex NBA champion is going to be really beneficial for them, and their title aspiration, I feel like, is going to be called on with Steve Nash. I feel like they can win a title with Steve Nash and that team right there.
Yeah, that's another big name to watch out for. Obviously, kind of a surprise hire when you have a massive ego to handle in Kyrie, and obviously KD we know is arguably the best player in the league when he's healthy. A lot of pressure there as well, especially for a guy who has never coached before. But we'll see. I mean, obviously we know his relationship with KD from Golden State, so we'll see how he can handle those egos. All right, that'll wrap up our NBA segment. Thanks for the draft talk, and we'll talk to you boys next week. All right, as we segue into our NFL segment now, I'm joined by Nolan, Parker, Leon, and Alex. We're going to start with the big upset, not upset maybe, but the blowout in Sunday Night Football. The Saints stunned the Buccaneers. Tom Brady in that offense only put up 3 points in Antonio Brown's first time on the Buccaneers. Parker, what stood out in that game?
I think what stood out is the same thing that's been going on all season. You saw the loss on Thursday Night Football to the Bears a few weeks back, and then you saw the big win to the Packers, and now they come out and put up this performance. I think the Bucs are a good contender, but they're going to need to get it together, and they're going to need to put up some points and put up some good play every single week.
All right, Nolan. Is that a game we should ignore for the Bucs, or should we really start to question how good they are in a strong NFC this year?
I mean, that game absolutely cannot be ignored. Their offense just looked completely out of sync in that game. Tom Brady with 0 touchdown passes for the first time this year and 3 interceptions. Their offense was not clicking. He did spread it out to all of his wide receivers well, but only for 209 yards. I think we should take this as a warning sign for the Bucs, especially after last week's win over the Giants, where they won by just 2 on maybe a missed pass interference call. But after a close win against a terrible team like the Giants, and the Saints don't have a great defense, and they put up just 3 points in garbage time. So I think absolutely we need to worry about this Bucs offense and this Bucs defense after letting the Saints put up such a big number against them.
Yep. Leon, after a couple tough results, how do you think the Bucs stand now in the NFC?
I think the Bucks are still the favorite in the NFC. I don't believe the Saints. Even though the Saints beat them twice, I don't believe the Saints got to compete with them. They're gonna be the Super Bowl favorite, and they're gonna be winning the Super Bowl.
All right, Alex. The Saints obviously get a big win there, and now they've entered first place in that division. Do you think they're the best team in the NFC right now?
Saints?
Yeah.
Oh, I think there's tons of better teams than the Saints. I'm not sold on the Saints. They got old as heck Drew Brees, who can throw the ball no further downfield than 10 yards. They got slant boy Mike Thomas, who's looked average this year in his few games that he's played. I hate the Seahawks, and I think they're pretenders. I mean, I love the Seahawks, but I think they're pretenders, and this is why I'm pissed at them. But I think even they're a better team than the Saints. I'm not sold on the Saints. I agree with Leon. I still think the Buccaneers are the team to beat in the NFC. They just got to get their stuff together. They can't be blowing out teams one week and then getting blown out the next week. It's really hot and cold. And so I think if they fix that problem, they're back to being the favorites in the NFC.
All right. And let's go from the 2 oldest quarterbacks in the league to 2 of the youngest quarterbacks in the league. A big game on Sunday, the Dolphins and Cardinals. Obviously, Tua gets another win, his second of his career, now 2-0. The Dolphins look like a real contender in the AFC. Parker, who is the better quarterback of those 2?
Kyler Murray. I mean, Tua's played 1 game, and you want me to say it's Tua when Kyler Murray's had this good of a season so far? I think the Cardinals are playoff contenders if their defense can find a way to start playing in the game. Their offense is all-star caliber, and they just need a defense.
Nolan, does that game show that the Dolphins are going to be a playoff team in the AFC there?
I mean, I've been a little bit skeptical about the Dolphins so far up to this point, but I mean, that was just a fantastic game by them this weekend against the Cardinals. I think this has to show us that they are legitimate contenders in the AFC, especially with such a good performance from Tua, his first big game of the year. It looks like they are finally getting a little bit used to him, letting him throw it deep a few times, letting him run the ball a little bit. Looks like he's starting to get more involved in that offense. I think if they can get him more involved and if he can keep up this production throughout the season, they will be legitimate contenders in the AFC.
Agreed. It looks like that quarterback change has kind of unlocked new potential for that team because obviously we know what Ryan Fitzpatrick brings and kind of the limit that he has. Obviously, he's not mobile like Tua. He's just not the special quarterback that Tua is. And I want to talk about all of the young quarterbacks in the league. Besides Patrick Mahomes, Leon, who do you think is the best young guy in the league?
I believe the best young guy in the league is Kyler Murray. I don't think Lamar can throw the ball, and Herbert, he's been choking every single game. Like he can't finish a game. We got Tua here. Tua, the defense is carrying them right now. Like the defense is like carrying Tua for wins. Like Tua's not even great. And Burrow's throwing like 50 passes a game out here, so no dip. His stats don't look good.
I agree. Kyler Murray is definitely the best young quarterback in the league right now besides Patrick Mahomes. I wouldn't say that about Justin Herbert, though. He looks like a phenomenal quarterback so far. The fact that he can't finish out games, I'm not going to put that on him. Right? I'm going to put that on the Chargers defense. I'm going to put that on the Chargers play calling. I mean, we saw Justin Herbert run a fantastic 2-minute draw at the end of that last game, just a drop on the last play of the game, just a heartbreaking loss for the Chargers.
Horrible play call.
I think Herbert is definitely the real deal, and I think he'll pick it up over the next few seasons.
None of you believe in Joe Burrow? None of you believe that?
I think Joe
Burrow
Burrow
was on the worst team in the NFL last year, and he's definitely picked it up a little bit. You're not going to expect him to get all these wins like maybe some of these better teams who drafted quarterbacks, but I still believe in Burrow in the upcoming years.
I agree. He looks like a great pocket passer in the league. Obviously, he's pretty mobile, but he's he's not a rushing quarterback, kind of like Kyler and Lamar are. Obviously, Lamar is a special throwing talent as well, but the rushing ability kind of goes away. We see that with Cam Newton and obviously Michael Vick. Just as you get older, your rushing ability kind of declines, and those quarterbacks don't last as long in the league. I think Herbert and Joe Burrow look like 15, 17-year quarterbacks in this league. Just really special. And then on Alex's point about Herbert choking, or Leon's point maybe, he's not choking at all. He threw a beautiful ball to win the game in the end zone, and his tight end just completely dropped the ball. He's been really special as a rookie quarterback on a team that's really struggling, that's just a bad defense, poorly coached team. I think their coach will be gone after the year too. Let's move on quickly to another young quarterback, actually. Josh Allen and the Bills advanced to 7-2 with a big win. Parker, are they pretenders or contenders?
I think they're still contenders. I think they went through a soft part of their season. They got a few losses, and they really were not playing good. But to see them pick it up like that against a good team like the Seahawks now puts them in good contention for me. Josh Allen is still in MVP contention, definitely.
Let's be clear. The Seahawks are not a good team. They have a star-studded offense with the worst defense I've ever watched. So it's an impressive win for the Bills because they were able to shut down that Seahawks offense. That's what impressed me the most. As much as you can shut down that Seahawks offense. And I like the Bills going forwards, but Seattle's not a great team. They have an atrocious defense, and that's what makes them a pretender instead of a contender.
Hey,
Leon, are the Bills Super Bowl contenders, Leon?
The Bills are definitely Super Bowl contenders, and after beating the Seahawks, and I believe they could win the Super Bowl and beat they can seat in the NFC Championship with the Buccaneers.
Wow. All right.
What did you say?
Huh?
He said he thinks they're Super Bowl contenders. Let's talk quickly
I
about
said
Dalvin Cook.
I said NFC Championship with the Buccaneers.
Well, they're in the AFC, but
Bills
anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Dalvin Cook, who's put up 369 yards and 5 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks over the Lions and the Packers. Just 2 dominant performances. Nolan, is he the best running back in the league right now?
I mean, he has to be the best running back in the league right now, right? I mean, you think about guys like Christian McCaffrey, who just came back from an injury. You think about Alvin Kamara, who had a monster start to the season. He's been a little bit quiet these past few weeks. But Dalvin Cook absolutely has to be the best running back in the league right now. I mean, 2 weeks in a row, he's had over 150 rushing yards, plus multiple touchdowns in each game, with 4 touchdowns last week and 2 this week. I think if you don't have Dalvin Cook as the best running back in the league right now, I mean, I don't know who it would be, right? He's just looked phenomenal. He's been carrying the Vikings, right? He's basically their entire offense. So, I mean, absolutely, I think he's the best running back in the league right now.
I think no one's going to argue that Dalvin Cook isn't the best running back in the league, but do y'all think Dalvin Cook has MVP contention coming from a running back?
I'm not sure how he really could. Just
MVP,
look
I
at
think
how
it's
Mahomes
Cook.
is playing.
You can't compete for an MVP as a running back. You can't.
I mean,
Especially after missing a week. I don't know. I think Cook is a stretch for MVP. I think he's definitely in the conversation. I don't think he's a legitimate contender, though.
No, he's not. Mahomes is
I think maybe with a little bit more team success he could be, but the Vikings are struggling. And
yeah, Mahomes has got to be the
Mahomes has to be the lock for MVP, right? Because Russell Wilson, obviously another tough loss this week to the Bills. And Mahomes has 1 interception all year. He has that offense just looking like unstoppable force with Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, Sammy Watkins, obviously Clyde and Le'Veon now, Travis Kelce. They just look like an unstoppable offense, and really the favorites in the AFC and maybe in the league right now.
Yeah, Russ is sort of.
Russ is in a
the
spot.
best.
I mean, he pretty much has to carry that team. Like they have to throw the ball as much as they can because that offensive line is terrible and they can't run block. And that defense is just going to give up a touchdown every possession. So Russell essentially has to throw a touchdown or score every single possession he's got. And so when you force the ball downfield so much like they do, because they have to do that to win games, you're going to throw a lot of interceptions.
All right, I want to quickly transition. Let's go to the NFC West. We obviously talked about the potential of 4 teams moving out of that division. Now we know Jimmy Garoppolo and all the Niners injuries. Seahawks, Alex said, are pretenders at this point. 49ers have a tough loss to the Dolphins. Leon, who do you think comes out of that division this year?
I think the Cardinals will come out of the division. I believe the Cardinals will beat the Seahawks in a head-to-head matchup, and they're gonna provoke them to be above the Seahawks. And Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, that offense is electrifying, and I believe the Cardinals are gonna be the NFC West champion.
Owen, who do you think?
Make the playoffs, though, right? You think, Leon?
Huh?
Seahawks making the playoffs, Leon?
Make the playoffs,
Yeah,
right?
I think they're gonna make the playoff, but I don't think they're gonna go far with that defense, because that defense is trash.
Nolan, who's coming out of that division in your mind?
Yeah. I think record-wise, the Seahawks and the Cardinals will be right at the same level all year. I think the Cardinals come out based on head-to-head matchups. I think Kyler leads his team to another win against the Seahawks later this year. I think the Cardinals win the division. The Seahawks absolutely make the playoffs. Starting to get a little bit iffy about the Rams. The 49ers definitely not making the playoffs at this point with injuries and all that. The Rams will have to see how they do this week.
Big matchup against the Seahawks, right? So. Yep. Yeah, they've got a big one. Big NFC matchup. Seahawks versus Rams. Obviously, the 49ers have the Saints, and the Cardinals play the Bills. So 4 teams who have tough matchups coming up this week. I want to talk about a quick – everyone pick an upset for this week. Let's start with Parker.
Bro, let me look at the matchups. Jeez.
All right, let's start with Nolan.
I got the Chargers over the Dolphins this week. I think Herbert finally leads his team to a win. In their 6 losses this year, the Chargers have lost by a total of 24 points. So I think they finally close out a game and beat the Dolphins in 2 of this week.
All right, Alex, you?
Giants over Eagles, because why not?
Wow.
Bengals over Steelers, because why not?
All
Steelers
right.
almost lost to the Cowboys. Bengals are going to beat them. Joe Burrow is going to beat them.
Wow. All right, I'm going to go with the Texans over the Browns. I think this is kind of the last straw for Baker Mayfield. I really don't think that offense is any good, and obviously their defense is not elite. Obviously Myles Garrett's playing like the defensive player of the year, but just Baker Mayfield's not a starting quarterback in this league. He's going to prove why he's a bust. I think it's his last season on the Browns, and this game's going to really prove that they're not contenders in the AFC. All right, that's a wrap on our NFL segment. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll talk next week. All right, we start now our first ever golf segment on this Masters week. A lot of buzz around the golf world about Bryson DeChambeau. Austin, tell me a little bit about him.
Well, I mean, he's been an absolute animal all season. The highest average driving rate in the PGA. Most tee to greens. I mean, he's incredible.
Yeah, I wonder if his power can revolutionize the sport of golf. Alex, do you think he will win this weekend?
Yeah, it'll definitely be close. Obviously, the Masters is most of all a mental game, and there's a lot of guys at the top who could really compete for that top spot and give Bryson a run for his money. So I think he's definitely the favorite, but I'd say watch out for guys like John Rahm, Dustin Johnson. Colin Morikawa has looked really good. Obviously, Brooks Koepka, the majors are his stomping ground. And so, Bryson, obviously the favorite, but he's got to definitely watch out for those other guys. They could really give him a run for his money.
Yeah, John Rahm, who's second favorite behind Bryson DeChambeau, according to a CBS ranking. Austin, do you think John Rahm should be the favorite this tournament?
Sorry. I don't think he should be the favorite. I think he is obviously in contention because he's a great golfer, as we've seen over the summer. And through the past year and a half, 2 years or so, I mean, he's shown how great he really is. But I think Bryson DeChambeau is really, at least past the quarantine break, he really upped his game. He started working out, as much as possible to increase his driving length. I've heard some of the reports that are coming out that he's going to use a 48-inch driver, which is the longest in regulation that you can use, to try to get his swing speed up to like 145 miles an hour, which is, blows everyone else out of the water. Yeah. So I think John Rahm's in contention, but it looks like it should probably go to Bryson DeChambeau.
All right, so we've talked about the young guys, obviously, Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, and Brooks Koepka. Alex, I want to talk about some of the veterans. Rory McIlroy, who's sixth favorite heading into the tournament. What do you think his chances are?
Well, Rory, we know is one of the great golfers of the world, and so he's always going to have a shot. But I think with these young guys, the long bombers, guys like DeChambeau, it's going to be tough for him to compete. Obviously, he can crush the ball, but he can't drive it, 320, 330 yards every single time like DeChambeau pretty much can. And so, it'll really come down to DeChambeau's ability to perform in and around the greens. Obviously driving is his strong suit, but can he go up and down from 100 yards out? Can he stick the ball close? Can he putt well? That's really the question of this tournament. And if he can do those things well, I think there's no doubt DeChambeau can win. And if he does those things poorly, it really opens the door for a John Rahm or maybe even a Spieth, Spieth's really good putter, and a McIlroy. Guys who have experience in the contentious moments to pull one through, where DeChambeau's he's never really been in this top spot before.
All right, and I want to talk about another legend, Tiger Woods, obviously the reigning champ. Will he get his second green jacket this weekend, Austin?
I don't think so, just because of how he's struggled over the past several months or so. At East Lake and Winged Foot, I don't think. I don't know if it's a headspace kind of thing, because there's no doubt that he's the greatest golfer of all time. It's just whether he's mentally there or not over the past couple of months. Because obviously last summer at the Masters, he was incredible. I mean, he was nuts. Or 2 summers ago, whatever. Yeah, it was last summer. But he just, I don't think his mental game is quite there.
All right, Alex, how do you think his experience? Obviously, he's played here so many times, and he obviously won last year. How do you think that experience is going to benefit him on this course with young guys like Bryson and Koepka and John Rahm and all those guys?
Yeah, right. And you bring up a great point. There's a contrast between the young guys who can crush the ball and who are more physically fit to win the Masters, and the older guys who aren't as physically in shape and ready to dominate the golf course as the younger guys are, but they have the experience and they've been there before. And so I think that experience is really invaluable, but that experience has to come with some baseline ability to play the course well and have the the ball striking ability to compete with those the young guys who can just crush it. And so I think we'll see that play out. I don't think Tiger is a realistic contender for this year's Masters. I think he's just too old at this point. He hasn't looked great this year, like Austin said. I think that his experience on this stage will push him up maybe 3 or 4 spots higher than he would have otherwise been. But yeah, I think this is really a Masters for the younger guys to win.
All right, I want to talk about one more legend, Phil Mickelson. Austin, do you think, obviously he's probably not a contender to win it this year. I mean, everybody is, but he doesn't really seem like he has a great chance of winning it all. Do you think he makes a cut come the weekend?
I mean, it's tough to say. I think his driving ability is there and his iron ability is there. I think it'll all depend on where he falls around the greens. If he can play well around the greens, yes, then maybe he can make that cut, come the weekend. But if he plays like he did a couple months back at Winged Foot, where he's using his putter from 75 yards out to just try to make kind of a trick shot, that's not, I mean, you're not going to get anywhere with that. And I hope that he does make the cut, because he's an incredible golfer to watch.
Yep. All right. It's going to be a fun tournament to watch out for this weekend. I think we'll all be tuned in, obviously, to see who wins there. But thanks for the insight, and we'll see you guys later.
We're now moving into our soccer segment, and I'm joined here with Nick Simpson, Dad Hempel, Austin Garrison. Got a lot to talk about, a lot of interesting stories coming out of the soccer world right now. Probably the biggest one is Cristiano Ronaldo. Juventus will be looking to offload him for the next season. Apparently, they can't afford to pay his wages anymore. And reports have it that he wants to go to Manchester United. There's some reports out there. I saw one earlier today that Juventus would be looking to do a swap deal with Ronaldo and Neymar to send him to PSG. Thad, how much weight do these rumors hold? And if Ronaldo is to move on, where do you see his likely landing place?
So I mean, I think it's likely that he'll leave. I don't know if PSG or Man U are really gonna be the place he goes, because for Man U, I think it's not a great decision for them because they're not a good enough team to really like be winning, like to be back to like the Ferguson days and be winning the Premier League and being like the obvious choice for like the Champions League or whatever. So, but their front three is very good and are all below 25, I think, and like they have a future, and if they get Ronaldo, that takes away from them investing in that future and giving the playing time to players who are younger and can develop to be the next Ronaldo.
So hypothetically speaking, if Ronaldo is to end up at Manchester United, whose spot do you think he'll take? I mean, obviously he kind of in his earlier days he was a winger. He's kind of shifted towards more being like a central man. In that formation for Manchester United, what spot does he take?
I think I could really only see him up top. He's not like young enough anymore to really be a good winger. He's not as quick as he used to be. He's just like, I mean, Zidane made a very smart choice when Ronaldo was like getting like to be not as like just like going down in his skill level. Zidane made the switch to put him at striker, and he went like right back up, and he was almost as good as his prime. So, like, I think you'd take Anthony Martial's spot because I mean he plays striker for them. So
Interesting. Okay. And what about the other rumored destination, PSG? Austin, how do you think he could fit into that PSG lineup? Do you think PSG will be interested in a Ronaldo move involving Neymar or even without Neymar?
I think it's definitely possible because, I mean, realistically, there's only probably 3 or 4 clubs on earth that could even afford to pay for him. And it would be, especially after the pandemic, being PSG, United, and maybe Man City. Those would be the big 3 that could afford to rebuy him. Real Madrid have had a bit of financial trouble. Barcelona's the same way, but I don't think he'd ever go to Barcelona purely because, it's the whole Madrid rivalry. Same thing where I don't think he'd go to Man City because of the United rivalry. I think he would fit into a PSG squad. I'm just not sure he'd want to. Because United was his home for 6 years, and then obviously Madrid for the later 9. I just think that he'd probably, at his age, want to go back to where his career started, being at United. Because, I mean, he could go to Sporting, but I doubt that. Sporting's too small of a club. Obviously, they couldn't afford to pay for him. But, I mean, he really reached his, I guess, pre-peak at United. He reached some of his best form at United, and that was where he kind of became a household name. So I think that's probably where he'd go back. But I guess as far as PSG goes, I think he could fit with a Neymar and Mbappe front 3, or an Icardi if they were to do a swap move for Neymar.
Di Maria too. Yeah. That's interesting. And so do you see Manchester United as a place he wants to go, but maybe Manchester United doesn't want him as much because, Thad brought up a great point about stunting their young development. Obviously, United have a lot of really good players up top who've got a lot of youth. Mason Greenwood comes to mind, Martial, Rashford. So as a United fan, would you be interested in Ronaldo coming back and risking stunting some of that development?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I'd definitely be interested in him coming back because he's, one of, the greatest players of all time. He was, incredible to watch during his United days, and I just think it'd be nice to have him back. I agree with Thad with him taking Anthony Martial probably out of that starting lineup. But I disagree that he'd play as a striker. I think what would end up happening probably is he would either play on one of the wings, him and Rashford would play on the wings, and then I would say probably Mason Greenwood would play as a center player because he's just such a deadly finisher and he can go up with either foot and score with either foot. So I think he'd probably be best suited for that center position. But yeah, I would personally love to see Ronaldo back at United.
Okay, all right. Good points there. I do want to talk about with Nick here how Juventus will look post Ronaldo. Obviously, this team is kind of rallied around him. A lot of their goal scoring comes through Ronaldo. So, Nick, how do you view Juventus moving forward? Obviously they can't afford Ronaldo's wage bill. How do you view them as a contender for the Champions League and in Serie A moving forward without Ronaldo?
Honestly, without Ronaldo, we haven't really seen Juventus as being a very, very successful team. I mean, the past couple of years that Ronaldo has been there, we've seen all these headlines. Ronaldo bringing Juventus to the top of the table. I just don't think that Juventus will be the team that everyone's talking about before, pre-Ronaldo. No one was really talking about how Juventus was this team that, if they beat this team, that's an upset. Like, no one was really talking about them. So I think Ronaldo being potentially off the team will just, I don't know. I just don't think that it will have a good outcome for Juventus's name, and I just don't think that it'll be good for, their club.
So obviously Ronaldo, huge goal scoring contributions at Juventus. Is it possible that Paulo Dybala can kind of fill those shoes, or do you think they need to bring in somebody else to kind of fill his role, or as best you can fill Ronaldo's role?
As good as Paulo is, I think it's a little too early to say, because he can either step up and be the player that they need and be the goal scorer, or he might need just that one more player to fill a position that he could have to assist him, or that he can feed up top to score.
Interesting. Okay, so Ronaldo moving on, that'd be big news. Kind of depends on where he goes and which clubs wants him. Could be a conflict of interest there with Man United. I want to move now to the Champions League, and probably one of the most shocking stories from these first three games is PSG currently sit in third place in Group H with Leipzig and United both ahead of them. They've lost two games, both to the Leipzig and United, and they've only beaten Besiktas in kind of an iffy win, if you will. What's gone wrong, Austin, for the defending champs, and can they turn it around, or the runners up?
Honestly, I'm not sure. It could be, I guess, a little bit of second season syndrome, which is kind of something. I mean, it impacts a lot of newly promoted teams in a lot of leagues where they'll do very well their first season and then they'll get relegated again. And I think it's a similar thing that may be happening here. Is, obviously they were really hyped up last season, and they did end up getting to the Champions League final, and they really did put up a fight against the best team in Europe and arguably the best team in the world. But I just think that they may think too highly of themselves, and they may be too almost complacent to get to that level, back to that level of where they need to be. RB Leipzig is a great team, so they do deserve maybe to move on. They were semifinalists last year. United have performed very well, except for the Besiktas game, where the defending was terrible, but that's another story. But I think if PSG isn't able to put up results against the teams that are in this group of death, I just don't think I would see them moving on all that far. So it may be better to get them out now.
Okay, yeah. Obviously, as a PSG fan myself, I'm a little bit concerned with them going forward. Thad, so their next matchup in the Champions League will be against RB Leipzig. They kind of got a little bit of a home and away series here. They played at Leipzig for their third game, and then their fourth game they'll play home against Leipzig. Can they make the group stages or the knockout stages? Sorry, in your mind? Obviously, they've got Man United. They got some points to make up here. And if they are to make it, who misses out, United or Leipzig?
I can't imagine PSG not making it. they like there's no question they have the talent in their team, and we've seen PSG come through, like in the Champions League last year versus Atlanta, and like I mean, like I can't see them not. And I think if a team were to get knocked out, then I think it'd have to be Leipzig. Like even though they've been playing well, they're still missing like the big presence of Timo Werner, and they haven't really done much to replace him. So if PSG or Man U can figure out how to really like take advantage of their lack of a dangerous striker, then I mean it's a relatively easy win. Otherwise, their best center back is out, so they have a decent goalie. Like there's it's a weak team overall.
Okay, so if PSG are to move on, you think Leipzig would be the team booted out? Real quick before we go, I want to talk about Champions League favorites pretty fast. Nick, who's your favorite outside of Bayern? Obviously, Bayern are the favorite right now. Who's your favorite outside of Bayern to win the Champions League at this point, given what we have seen in the group stages so far?
Honestly, I want to see a repeat of last year. I want to see PSG and Bayern go at it again because it was a one-goal game last year. And if we are being honest, from that goal last year, it could have been prevented. For me, I'm not even looking at results right now. I want to see PSG and Bayern in the end going at it this year.
So do you think those teams could be the two best teams come the end of the tournament?
Looking at the results right now, I think PSG have to work really hard and just use their talent, but it is looking a little bit shaky for PSG right now. So I'm not too sure. I just want to see these two teams go at it again.
Okay, yeah, me too. I'd like to see them in another Champions League final. Austin, who's your favorite right now outside of Bayern?
As much as it kind of pains me to say it, I think Liverpool have played incredibly well. They're running 3 for 3 right now, and I think with Diogo Jota up front, he's such a goal scoring threat. I guess that I think that they will definitely be able to make it pretty far.
How about you, Thad?
I think I gotta say Man City. Like I think I would say Liverpool, but like if you watched the Man City Liverpool game, Diego Jota was just silent. Like it wasn't I don't think he'll be able to show up against the big teams. And I think his run of form is gonna end soon. Like he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but he was nowhere near this good at Wolves. And he was played in a more prominent position there. So I can't imagine it really like his run of form continuing. So yeah, I'd say Man City. I mean, they have the talent. De Bruyne's the best player in the world right now. Aguero's still a great striker. Sterling, incredible. Like
Yeah, so you bring up Man City, and they definitely have the talent to get it done. Is there lack of domestic success this season? Any cause for concern for you?
I mean, no, because I mean, like we've seen, like Liverpool won the Champions League and got like third in the league the year they won it. Like, and Man City won the league that year and didn't do much. Like, I think those are two separate things. And like, Atletico Madrid won the won the Champions League one year and got third or fourth in the league. Like, it's not. Those are two separate things. If you can perform in the games that really matter, like I think they're okay. And the Champions League means way more to Pep because he's won the league with them before. And if he could pull off a Champions League, he's almost undoubtedly the best manager in the world right now.
Yeah, interesting. And you bring up a lot of teams that have won the Champions League or have won the league and not done well in the other competition. The only thing I worry about right now is Man City currently 3-0 in the Champions League, sit atop their group, and are placed 10th in the Premier League with 12 points behind some teams that really aren't better than them, like Southampton or Crystal Palace, Aston Villa. And so I wonder if if Pep is almost kind of saying, okay, we're just going to sacrifice domestic success this year and just go all out for the Champions League. Anyway, we're going to move on to another segment now. Thank you guys for joining us. A lot of interesting takes, a lot of interesting points. And we're going to move on to our next segment now. Thank you.
All right, as we transition now into our college football segment, I'm joined by Leon and Alex. Another busy week in college football, headlined by Clemson losing to Notre Dame without their star quarterback, presumptive number 1 overall pick, Trevor Lawrence. Leon, is this a big deal? Should we overreact to Clemson, or it's not a big deal because they didn't have their star quarterback?
I don't think college football should overreact at all. Like, the committee showed that we shouldn't even overreact because they're still in the playoff race. They dropped down like 3 spots. Doesn't really matter. They're gonna be in the finals in the national championship.
All right, Alex. What did you see from Notre Dame in that game that really stood out? And does it show that they're a true playoff team, even though the Clemson team they beat was, missing their star player?
Yeah, the Irish looked really good. I think I liked their running back, Kyron Williams. He looked really impressive. 23 carries, 140 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kind of put the team on his back at some points. And so, yeah, they looked really impressive to me. That defense looked really good. The offense looked explosive. Ian Book looked pretty good too. Only had 1 touchdown. Obviously had that one mishap on the goal line where he fumbled. But I was genuinely really impressed with this Irish team. I wasn't very high on them. I'm usually not very high on the Irish because they're an independent team and they don't play anybody and they just beat a bunch of crap teams. But this year they definitely look legit in my opinion.
All right, and I want to talk about the prospect of Trevor Lawrence, who obviously we know didn't play in this game, but it doesn't matter because he's the presumptive number 1 overall pick, bearing an injury. If the Jets were to get the first pick, which it seems like they're headed in that direction after the loss to the Patriots on Monday Night Football, should he come out and go to New York, Alex?
Yeah, I think it depends on who's running the organization in New York. I think if it's Adam Gase as head coach, I don't think any quarterback should want to play for Adam Gase. He's been this Jets team has been atrocious, largely because they don't have talent, but also a big part of that is Adam Gase is a horrific coach. And so I think if any QB sees Adam Gase as the head coach of an organization, they should avoid that organization at all costs. I think one thing that, assuming Adam Gase is the head coach of the Jets, which I highly doubt he will be by the end of the season. But even if he is, I think one thing that Lawrence could do is just pull an Eli Manning and say, if you draft me, I'm not playing for you. But other than that, I think it really hinges on Gase. If Gase is the head coach, stay at Clemson. If he's not the head coach, go get your money.
All right, Leon, and you've been pretty high on Sam Darnold. You've been demanding that the Jets stick with him for the future. If the Jets get that first pick, do you still think they stick with him, or should they go to Trevor Lawrence now that we've seen he's clearly the real deal?
Yeah, I believe the Jets should go for like a O-line like Penny, so the Oregon O-line. Yeah, the Oregon O-lineman. I believe the Jets should pass on Trevor Lawrence, and I think the Jaguars are going to select Trevor Lawrence. I think Sam Darnold is the real deal. They just got to fire Adam Gase.
Do you think they should trade down? Like Jets get number 1 pick, they trade down and then take Sewell like 2nd or 3rd?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah,
but knowing the Jets, they won't do that.
Yeah, I think that'd be an interesting way to go. I definitely think you're right with Lawrence.
It's got to be a lock, though, that Trevor Lawrence is going number 1. I mean, the Jets would be able to get so much value to move back 2-3 spots and still get Penei Sewell, the left tackle out of Oregon, who just really looks like a generational O-lineman. But you can't stay at number 1 and take him over Fields and Lawrence when those guys are the clear number 1 and number 2 picks. Look at the Washington football team, or even teams with older quarterbacks. If Drew Brees retires or Tom Brady retires or whatever it is, there's going to be so many quarterback needy teams that are going to target the Patriots team. Right? Looks like Cam Newton won't be their guy of the future. Just looks like they'll be giving up so much to go get Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields that you can't sit at 1 and draft the left tackle.
Yeah, and I think that's what will happen. I think Lawrence is definitely the first overall pick. It just kind of depends on whether the Jets keep that pick or whether they trade down and take Sewell, like Leon predicts.
I think they've got to take Lawrence, though, right?
I think it depends. I think it depends on how much the new head coach likes Darnold.
All right, we'll see. I want to talk about some of those other quarterbacks though as well in the first round. On Mel Kiper's latest draft board, he has 5 quarterbacks going in the first round. Lawrence, Fields, Lance, Mac Jones, and then the quarterback out of BYU. I don't want to mess up his name. What is it, Alex?
Zach Wilson.
Yeah, Zach Wilson. Always forget that. Mac Jones kind of skyrocketing up the big boards. Todd McShay said he's having a Joe Burrow-like season where he kind of goes from a late round to an undrafted type player, and his team just having success. It looks like the Alabama's going to have the number 1 seed, similar to LSU, and then he's going to enter the first round conversation. People are talking about he might now even be the 3rd quarterback off the board. But Alex, you don't think there's any way he surpasses Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yeah, no, I think those are the top 2 guys as far as quarterback goes. Fields has looked amazing. He has more touchdowns right now than incompletions. And obviously we know what Trevor Lawrence can do. And so I think Mac Jones has looked really good. He kind of reminds me of Joe Burrow in that sense, where he doesn't have an amazing arm, but he's got great ball placement. Kind of the Joe Burrow comparison is there. And I definitely think he could be the 3rd QB off the board. I'd say I have to see more out of him to kind of, center my franchise around a guy like Mac Jones. But I definitely think he could be that guy going forward.
All right. And Leon, if you were an NFL GM, you're picking at, say, 8th overall, you need a quarterback. Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence aren't available. Is it too risky to take Trey Lance there when he hasn't played this season and he only has 1 real year of tape at a school that's really iffy in a bad conference? Is it too risky to take him there, or do you take him there because he looks like a generational quarterback?
I believe you should take him there. I think he's the next Mahomes. If you look at the tape from like last year, he had like he won every single game and he was amazing. So like I believe Trey Lance is
North Dakota State University, right?
Carson Wentz was from North Dakota State University.
Yeah,
Look at how
North Dakota State is not like
not that
terrible school. They're pretty much a
but he's not beating an Alabama defense like Trevor Lawrence, and he's not showing it against Georgia and Clemson. Like he's really just playing against weaker competition.
But then again, Carson Wentz didn't either, and he put MVP caliber numbers before.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, you're just drafting for the attributes, right? Like he's a mobile quarterback. He kind of fits the modern quarterback,
Mahomes.
Yeah, he's Mahomes-like, but you can't call him Patrick Mahomes yet. I mean, Patrick Mahomes looks like he could be the MVP for the next 15 years, and he'll have the Chiefs in Super Bowl contention forever. But we'll see. All right, that wraps up our college football segment. Thanks for the insight, and we'll talk next week, boys.
This podcast was edited by Gabe Aguero.